Thank you, Jacqueline, very much for that presentation. Our final contestant today is Bill Morgan. His department is Design. His advisor is Dr. Phillip Park. The title of his project is Mapping Violence in Schools. Bill, please take the stage.
About this time yesterday, students across America got up from their classrooms and moved from one classroom to another. For most students, this was no big deal, but for some, it was terrifying. Our schools are specialized buildings. They're designed for learning, and creating a safe environment is part of that context. Unfortunately, our schools are not immune to violence. Physical, sexual, and emotional violence are common occurrences on schools every day. The Center for Disease Control's recent national survey indicates that 22% of the students were in a physical fight. 8% were threatened or injured with a weapon. And almost 6% skipped school simply because they were afraid of being a victim of violence. My study seeks to quantify where violence occurs in school. It's only by knowing where can we genuinely frame the problem, identify risk factors, and then develop and test prevention strategies. To help frame the problem, I developed a questionnaire that quantified students' perception of where they felt unsafe in school. And I tested it on a small subject group. Then, 2 focus groups were held to get an understanding of why they thought violence happened where it did. The first group was school resource officers, who I used as the baseline. And the second group was students who have been identified as being at risk for violent behaviors. And based on these preliminary findings, I've been able to identify 3 spatial characteristics as contributors to violence. 1, these spaces are unowned. Think of a restroom as opposed to a teacher's personal classroom. 2, these spaces were disconnected, either visually or audially, from the other parts of the campus. And number 3, many of these spaces were just dimensionally inadequate. Put another way, the hallways were simply too narrow to allow the number of students to pass back and forth. Knowing this, we can now develop prevention strategies such as hallways that are wider than building code requires, or staggered class change times, or more transparent classrooms where people can be connected to other parts of the building. Symbolically, our schools represent our shared belief in who we are and what we hope to become. It rests on the premise that to learn, school-aged children can and should be protected from violence, and that includes the buildings in which they learn. Thank you.